So this is the type of filtering that we could engage in and that we performed because we were predisposed to think that the labor agreements are going to vary across the country, and they're, from a regional standpoint, going to have inherent differences. So we wanted to focus on what some of those were. Biggest headaches. So this is not regional, this is across the board. Pardon. Okay. This is not regional, it's across the board. Distributors, contractors, manufacturers. Biggest headaches versus supply chain partner. Well, let's just look at the high points, okay? From a distributor standpoint, forecasting and communication, and then critical product availability. From a contractor standpoint, it's critical product availability and then forecasting and communication. You see those two repeated by both members. The order of prominence changed, but they were still the highest cited. Region versus biggest headaches. So Western, South Central, Eastern. So in the Eastern region, forecasting and communication was the biggest headache cited. After that was critical product availability. Remember early on, I mentioned in terms of by region and by firm size based upon annual revenue, and these two both popped up. Contractor relationship with manufacturers and manufacturer relationship with contractors. Okay? Oh, manufacturers and suppliers on this one. So we can see that suppliers and manufacturers, the contractor relationship with suppliers and manufacturers was principally within the very good column from a supplier standpoint and good from a manufacturer standpoint. Those two stood out the highest. Although there was an excellent relationship that was, substantial from a supplier standpoint as well. Manufacturer relationship with contractors, principally, and then in terms of different types of services offered. So we can see part shortages, events management, risk management, sales, and then forecasting. And looking into the data a little bit more and looking at the areas that stand out, we see that manufacturer relationship with contractors in the 1, 2, 3, 4 poor category here, it's forecasting. Again, forecasting is standing out. Risk management also stands out in the fair category. And on the positive side, sales and operations planning is on the very good side. And you can see there's many others that are very good to good in terms of part shortage capacity issues, event management there, and then part shortage here, also good. Distributor relationship, a little bit more tightly clustered. Here it's a little bit more spread out. If you look at it from a bandwidth standpoint, it's a little bit more broad. Here it's more narrowly focused, so the spread is tighter, the standard deviation's tighter. And the other is that it has far more bias towards the positive side, very good and good. Now, it could be just because this relationship is an additional step removed, manufacturer to contractor. This is a little bit closer, distributor to contractor. It's hard to know exactly why those the bandwidth changed and the bias towards the better side was higher. This goes back to the question we asked about SIS and their success rates. And then we compared this to decreased material issues. So on the y-axis was the number of responses, and then the categories here are less than 50%, 50 to 70%, 70 to 80, 80 to 85, and greater than 85. This was, the specific question was asked was how well your SIS rate you achieved your SIS rate, okay, in terms of a percentage. So for instance, contractors who said that they were in the 70 to 80% range are saying that 70 to 80% of the time they successfully produce a short interval schedule and it was accurate, all right? The most pronounced in terms of just the aggregate numbers, the category of 50 to 70% was the highest. It's interesting, when I was doing some postgraduate research at Berkeley and taking classes, and in the classes I can recall, and one of them focused on supply chain management and focused on scheduling. That data suggested that contractors were closer to approximately 50% in terms of their short interval scheduling and being successful. Here, the bias is 50 to 70%, with the next highest less than 50. So it substantiates what we had been informed in our classwork, a little bit more, more biased towards a positive. But less than 50 and 50 to 70 were by far cited the largest. And then, in terms of the actual bars, this is less than 2% of the success rate having any type of a being because of a material issue, all right? So what you want to focus on is, if contractors were not successful in making their short interval schedule, what percentage of the time was it associated with a material issue? Building a case that if you were engaged in vendor managed inventory, could you effectively assist them in reducing the effect, a negative effect on their short interval scheduling through materials issues? So the ranges are from bars from moving from the left to the right, less than 2%, 2% to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, and greater than 20. You know, when you ask questions like this in a survey, you're not really sure where the ranges are going to be, so you do your best to come up with a categorization. And we can see that if we want to look at the extreme-most boundaries, we would say that contractors had a 50 to 70% success rate in their short interval scheduling, and that, bear with me for a minute, 5 to 10% of the time where they weren't within that 50 to 70%, it was related to a material handling issue, all right? A lot of data, I know, but it's designed to show you the backup of why the recommendations come out the way they did. Collaboration. So we've got collaboration with Western region, South Central, and Eastern region. Let me see where we are on time so I can get an idea. Okay, we're approximately an hour through the presentation, so I'm going to go through all three of them with you. And then we'll still have time at the end for questions, and I've got all the raw survey information if you'd like to see that. So from the Western region standpoint, in terms of collaboration, we see that in terms of the responses, okay, and the type, we've got forecasting and sales, it varies. Let's look at this. Good relationship in events management and forecasting. A very good relationship in sales and ops planning, and over here in parts shortages. Those are the ones that stand out in terms of the best type of a relationship. In terms of the poorest relationship, it's in risk management and in forecasting. Those are the bars that were the highest. South Central, here it's, look at the data and it's, it varies a little bit, but you can see the peaks from one to another don't vary significantly. Here, it's actually quite pronounced. And this is South Central, very good, stands out across the board. That wasn't nearly as discernible in the West. And then at the other extreme, they just stand out the most across the board in South Central. In the Eastern region, your region, you can see that Very good stands out across the board, but there's some opportunities. For instance, good also starts to be a case here under forecasting. So very good was reduced and good in forecasting here. That's again why forecasting was cited for the eastern region. So the combination of very good and good in the east, very, very positive. Here, for some reason in the south, very good was even a little bit more prominent. We conducted follow-on phone interviews. The intent of the phone interview was we collectively had almost 250 responses, and of those 250, 50 participants said that we could contact them for follow-on discussions. We made an attempt with all 50. We were, frankly, more successful with distributors and manufacturers than we were with contractors to get follow-up data. Even though we had a lot of contractors who indicated we could contact them when we attempted to, and as a follow-up, we really didn't get a large degree of support in providing additional data. Now, during the next week, when I get back, that's one of the things I plan on pursuing, more aggressively following up with them. We've already sent them an email. We've initiated phone calls. In some cases, we didn't get return calls. But I want to clear that so they have one final opportunity before we issue the final draft to get any input. Those are some of the questions, but I'll go into them if you have any questions, but that's what we did for phone calls. There were 4 case studies that were identified. They're listed here. One in Maine, one in Texas, and the other 2 were schools types of programs. A Walmart distribution center in Maine, a university hospital in Texas, Harrison County and Charles County, Maryland for schools. The case studies provided useful information which gave us some indicators of what we suggested. One of the dilemmas with the case study is it's proprietary and confidential information. So while I have raw information that gives actual numbers, we could not disclose it within the report. That's unfortunate, but that's, in terms of maintaining confidentiality. But the indicators were clear. Walmart distribution center, vendor managed consignment inventory. University hospital in Texas, value-added basis material management and logistics. Harrison County, okay? It talks about utilizing manufacturing rapid response, also materials management. Not necessarily vendor managed in terms of a formally structured program, but the emphasis was there. Same thing on the last one, managed all products. So let's go back again. So in the first one, vendor managed consignment inventory, that was how the case study was expressed to us in terms of the overall context, all right? $10 million in electrical materials, 1 million square foot facility, and a phased approach in terms of construction and materials management. The hospital in Texas, it looked at materials management, inventory management, logistics, and storage facilities. Storage facilities, in fact, was one of those that was cited in terms of an area that could be charged for services as well. The majority of it is managing materials, as you can read, and it'll be in the report. And this is one of the slides that you have in front of you. From the school requirements for Harrison County, listed by contractor, listed by manufacturer. Contractor had specific requirements in terms of, but again, the focus is all material management. Then the last case study on Charles County, Maryland. Here, a lot of focus based upon the school schedule and the need to perform within a certain context of time. That's always important in schools, however. And then it talks about the manufacturing distributor solution in terms of providing products from a regional manufacturing center with a very short turnaround. A lot of communication initiated, weekly calls, and then contractor calls as well. So those are all the slides that I have as far as, I wasn't sure how many questions I'd get. So I wanted to allow time for questions. We're at slide 48, I've got that many slides again that show raw survey data. So if anyone wants to see a greater degree of clarity in terms of any of the survey data, we can certainly go beyond that. And effectively, what I've got is, for instance, the 10 questions that were asked of all supply chain partners, and then we go through all the raw results, okay?